I think I've told you this before.
That's right.
But we were on a trip. I was 9 years old. We were on a trip going to Hawaii. In the airport, I can't remember if it was LA or San Francisco or whatever, but we were in the airport and my dad sneezes and he doesn't throw his back out, but he like pulls a muscle in his rib area, right? So like an external oblique or something like that. And he pulls a muscle. And so every time he laughs or every time he moves the entire trip, he's saying, oh, oh, oh. And it really came to a head around the swimming pool at the hotel we were staying at because he was lounging in one of those lounge chairs and it tipped backwards and his head ended up in the bushes and he's over there going, help me, help me. And people are laughing. Our family is laughing at him. Nobody else is laughing. Our family is dying laughing. And a gentleman walks over and says, sir, do you need some help? And he's like, yeah. And that just made us laugh even harder. And
which is the dumbest question of all time. Like when your feet are up in the air and your head is in a bush, you don't have to ask if I need help. I just do need help. Like what
That's
what
absolutely
true.
Mr. Puntastic. Well, Paul, here we are.
This is
the first episode of a brand new venture for us. But it's not the first time we've actually recorded the episodes.
It's the first episode. If there's anyone listening, maybe you stumbled upon it and you just decided you wanted to be the first to listen to a random podcast. Or maybe this is 2 years in the future and the podcast is, blown up to be top of the charts and you're doing a quest to go back to the original and you're hearing this. We're not that bright. That's the bottom line here. We recorded the first episode. I thought, great.
It was hilarious. Awesome. It was great.
A lot of fun. And then the recording was not good. The recording was, as the French say, garbage. So, well, I don't actually think they said it.
Okay.
Garbage is a French word, I believe. No?
It was an audio issue. But here's the point. If you are listening now and you've made it this far into the episode, congratulations. That's a huge thing. Number two, it can only get better from here.
Right.
So let's talk about...
I suppose it could get worse, but...
Yes, that's true. Let's talk about what we want this podcast to be, where we've come from, the segments we want to do, what we're excited about, because truth be told, we've already recorded a couple of episodes with guests. And so we're redoing the first episode so that we can get ready to release this. We have some theories and then we have some things that we've actually done, and we're excited to share that with the world. Paul and I have been friends for years now, since I was...
You were driving. So you had to be 16. I was 17.
I was driving. That's true. So it would have been, a number of years ago, because now I'm 43.
We're like approaching 30 years.
Yeah.
Let's sink in 30 years of hilarity, friendship.
Let's go there. So I would say that if nothing else, this podcast will chronicle some of our friendship. It will also reach beyond that. So it's not going to be all about Paul and Micah's longstanding friendship. It's going to be more than that. So don't worry about that. But I think a few people are going to be interested in that. So we're going to have story.
Can I just say,
yeah,
there are not many people, in anyone's life, I think, that where you have a friendship that has lasted almost 30 years. And I think one of the reasons that ours has lasted so long is because, we are for each other a rare type of person, which is a person that you can sort of just say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And you won't get back any judgment. You might get some teasing initially or whatever, but I could tell you tomorrow, hey, I think I'm gonna throw my hat in the ring for American Idol. And you would be like,
you should do that.
You're like old, but you would also kind of co-sign, right? And that's sort of been our journey, right? Is we have co-signed each other's adventures a lot of times. We have dreamed together. We have done some things that have not worked, certainly.
Sure.
And, here we are, living life, doing a podcast.
But for real, are you thinking about going to American
Idol? No, not even a little bit.
I was like, well, I would go stand in line with you. So if you wanted to do that, that would be awesome.
That's what you want. People that will stand in line with you.
That's right.
It's a stupid thing.
Yeah, well, it'd be fun. Anyways, so this is the beginning of something punny. It is the Mr. Puntastic Pod. And that's where like a great stinger would come into play. If we had like a nice,
if we had the budget,
a little
the
ditty,
technology.
in future episodes,
It's the Mr. Puntastic Pod.
thinking something very similar to that.
You could clip that, and that's our just stinger forever.
That's hilarious. Okay, so we've got a bunch of segments we want to cover in these because we're going to cover, like I said, friendship, but we're also going to talk about faith. We're both, we're both kind of former pastors. We've worked at a bunch of churches, worked in a couple together. So we've got that going. We were in a little music group together. We talk about that sometime. Paul's in a country band currently. So we talk about that stuff. There's a lot of things between the two of us. His family, there are 4 kids. We have 3. We were married a day apart.
You have 3. I have 4.
Yeah.
With wives.
Yes, exactly. And so our wedding days are a day apart. There's a lot of things that we've done in tandem or next to each other or close to each other that align. So there's a lot to go off of in terms of material to talk about, but there's also other things we want to talk about. So let's talk about some of the segments that we're going to kind of go over. And every segment won't be in every episode because we will have rotating segments and things of that nature.
And so much of this, right, is us figuring out what this thing is going to be as we go. So we're going to try some things. Not all of them will work. I'm sure you folks will let us know what works and what doesn't. And, we'll figure this out. So give us a year and we'll figure out if we got something. Maybe that's too big of an ask. But you want to go over some of the segments that we've shot up?
Yeah, we actually had a friend that wanted to do a podcast a day. And so he called it the 365 podcast. He wanted to do one podcast for a day for a year. I think he made it to like between 15 and 20 episodes. And he was like, I'm out.
I think he made it to Martin Luther King Day. Yeah.
That was too much. That was
January 15th-ish. No, we're looking at one a week.
Yeah. Hopefully, Yeah. So here's some of the segments, right? So let's just go in order. You take the first one.
Okay, so the first one is a personal favorite of mine, as Micah and I are both 43 now, so I can officially say we're the same age, at least for a couple months. But we're men of a certain age, and so you start to notice some things that you can't do as well as you once did. And so we're going to have the Danny Glover segment. Danny Glover famously played Detective Roger Murtaugh in the Lethal Weapon franchise, and his famous line, he was paired with Mel Gibson, who was kind of the wild card, and Danny Glover would famously say, I'm too old for this, right? And so like things that you used to be able to do that you can't anymore. For instance, I can't always sneeze without throwing my back out, right? Like sometimes I will just destroy myself for a week just by sneezing. Like I will ruin my weekend by sneezing because I'm old and that's what I do.
And my dad did that. I think I've told you this before.
That's right.
But we were on a trip. I was 9 years old. We were on a trip going to Hawaii. In the airport, I can't remember if it was LA or San Francisco or whatever, but we were in the airport and my dad sneezes and he doesn't throw his back out, but he like pulls a muscle in his rib area, right? So like an external oblique or something like that. And he pulls a muscle. And so every time he laughs or every time he moves the entire trip, he's saying, oh. And it really came to a head around the swimming pool at the hotel we were staying at because he was lounging in one of those lounge chairs and it tipped backwards and his head ended up in the bushes and he's over there going, help me. And people are laughing. Our family is laughing at him. Nobody else is laughing. Our family is dying laughing. And a gentleman walks over and says, sir, do you need some help? And he's like, yeah. And that just made us laugh even harder. And
which is the dumbest question of all time. Like when your feet are up in the air and your head is in a bush, you don't have to ask if I need help. I just do need help. Like what
That's
are
absolutely true. Yeah. So that's a great example because that is
the next segment.
A lot of things, we can pull from our past experience. This question is going to pull from our future because we're going to continue to have these moments moving forward and there's going to be a new one all the time. So
anyway. What's the next segment?
So the next thing is we know that we're going to have a lot of side quests. One of us is going to say something or a guest is going to say something and we're just going to go off on that tangent. So we're going to have those, but we're always going to come back to what we were talking about before. So a side quest tangent is going to be inevitable. It's going to happen all the time. Kind of like in a video game, where there's a character moving through a plot line, there are these little options to go do this other thing off to the side, a side quest. So that's where that kind of comes from. So there'll be exciting little detours to the main topic for sure. What's the next one?
The next one we had was, which I really like. So, in this day and age, we put our highlight reel on the internet, right? Like Instagram photos are always like, framed just right and posed just right. We take a dozen of them before we find the one that we want to post, right? It's a little hard to figure out who someone really is. And I contend that the best way to understand who someone is to take a jaunt through their Instagram feed, not who they follow, but who like social media sends to them, right? So this is what I have dubbed the Combrodable quiz. Are we Combrodable, like compatible as bros? This would be like the videos that you send to your buddy about, golfing. Like my brother-in-law, Jed, I send him videos all the time. He sends them to me that are like stupid idiots golfing. Jed and I are Combrodable when it comes to golf. I don't talk about golf with everybody, but that's the thing with him. So a lot of our guests, we're going to take that jaunt into their social media world and see what the internet is feeding them. And if the internet is feeding us the same thing, then hey, we're Combrodable. That means we can be buddies.
Yeah, for sure. And just like, my oldest son, he's 14, and there's certain things we send each other, and there's certain things that you and I send each other, and certain things, I talk with different people with, but we're all Combrodable in a different way. Even our wives, we're going to see if we're Combrodable with other people, and we're going to talk about that. And we're going to see what other people are watching. What are the reels?
We should have a little like stinger that when we go on a side quest, maybe it's not something that has to happen in the moment, maybe in post when we hire interns to edit our podcast here, like we could have some triumphant knight coming through saying side quest. And then
I
we
like
just
that.
know this is the part of the pod where we're just talking about something different.
How would you do it? Yeah, something like that.
You looking to snip it? Yeah.
Clipped. Great. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, here's another segment that is going to be frequent. Ideas that should have worked. So everybody's got these. Arguably, Paul and I have a few more than others. And there are things that we try creatively. There are things that we have accidentally done. There are mistakes we've made. And there are intentional things that we thought would work, but just never took off or never really did, or it worked for a while and it didn't after a while. And so we've got lots of conversation around that. Now, I think that might be one of the most relatable parts of this pod, because who hasn't failed or failed forward repeatedly in life? And if we're not failing, then we're not even trying anything. So I love the question, what have you failed at recently? Because I think that's going to be a really relatable and helpful discussion for a lot of people.
Yeah, I had a thought about this, by the way, because this failure was an idea that should have worked, but it was one that we never really tried. And it's completely my fault. But Micah and I started a church along with some friends and our families in 2014, I think it was when we launched. And we had a lot of ideas for how we would do things. And a lot of them we pulled off and they were great and all that stuff. But one of the ideas I had was around our guest services team, the people that would, like the experience that the guests would have when they walked in. And my idea was to line the pathway from the parking lot to the building with like signs, little sandwich board signs, and the signs would have compliments on them just to like make the guests feel good. So compliments like, did you get a haircut? Looking great, Susie. Or like, you are wearing the heck out of those jeans. Like just nice things that would make people feel really, really good. And I don't know that anyone was as tickled by it as me. I thought it would be hilarious. I could have done it. I just never pulled the trigger on it. I kind of regret that. The other piece of this also at the church that we started, I just like the idea of recording a video, just still camera pointed right at a bowl of mints. And you would just be staring at this bowl of mints as the viewer. And you would hear voices that would say, you don't need me. Your breath smells great already. Or you look great today. Or nice dress, Sheila, whatever it is, right? And it would just be like these voices saying nice things over and over again. You don't really know who they're talking to. And then on the screen would flash the phrase complimentary mints.
Yes. I remember this conversation repeated.
I think we stopped doing mints for a while.
Uh-huh.
And so then it was like, well, I can't record a video if there's no bowl of mints, and I can't, if we're not giving away mints, then I don't want to advertise it, right? So
What's really interesting about that is I'm just now putting together that one of your love languages is actually like words of affirmation. And you were trying to express that in some way, but a humorous way to people. You were trying to show that same thing to people through these things, but expressing it in a creative way. So it's really interesting.
Well, I like making people happy. And so I like the idea that just like if I can outsource my jokes to a sandwich board and like someone's laughing
outsource
on the way in, and like you just hear a thing of like, oh my gosh, you had that sign that said nice jeans. Like that'd make my life.
That would make your life. That's incredible. So I think, hey, that's an idea that could have worked and should have worked. We just never executed on it.
So if there's any church people out there listening and you want a great idea, those are free. You can take those. You don't have to give me credit.
Free ideas.
No, give me credit. I'd like for you to give me credit.
You can actually, if you contact Paul, he'll give you some compliments. You can quote him on the sign. You could just say Paul. So another thing that we're looking at doing is the guest quest. Okay. So we have no idea how long a season is for this podcast. There are different theories to podcast seasons. Some of them go on endlessly. It's just episode 1000 or whatever. I think Carey Nieuwhof has kind of that situation going. He just hit like 10 years or something in his podcast. He just celebrated. But so there's that theory. And then there's a theory where you have like season 1, season 2, season 3. Now, it could be that this has nothing to do with seasons, but the idea was, what if we have somebody we really want to connect with and have on the podcast? And we're always giving updates to like, are we getting closer? Did we make contact with somebody who knows them? And these are people a little bit out of reach, people we don't have connection to. Generally, we're shooting a little bit further than would be our normal situation. So the guest quest, we have not landed on a guest to pursue. So what I've done instead is I've started just shotgunning like to different people, cold emails and things to try to get a response, which is kind of a fun exercise in itself, because in my business, I need to be making new connections. In Paul's business, he needs to be making new connections. So it's sort of like practice for that kind of stuff, but it has no real, like, if you get rejected or nobody responds, you don't care because there's nothing on the line really for us here.
I think one of the things that's interesting, and just an observation as we've gone through this, because you've thrown out some different names. You threw out Jerry Seinfeld at one point, which is not like just outside of our reach. That's very far outside of our reach. And I forget some of the other names you've thrown out there, but then we'll ask the guest, hey, do you know this person? And they will chuckle a little bit and say no, and then it's over. I think we need to refine that approach, because I like the idea of saying like, okay, let's say it's Jerry Seinfeld. Okay, would you know Jerry personally? No, I don't know Jerry personally. Okay, what about anyone in stand-up comedy? Do you know any stand-up comedians? Anyone in that world? Maybe a club promoter, maybe a booking agent, maybe an aspiring like open micer, and then you can get some of these other guests along the way that are in that world, then have a connection to a connection. That might be a nice little way to do it.
Could be a great way to build upon that. And then there are people in our life that we just want to interview. It's just people that we just want to talk to. They're interesting people, or they have an interesting story, or we like to hang out with them. And so we think the conversation would be fun. We are the owners of this, so we can do whatever we want. But we want to make
microphone, so you will listen to everything that we have to say.
You don't have to. You could skip if you want to, but we want to make it valuable and fun at the same time. So that's the guest quest, a quest to get a specific guest. And then perhaps we continue with that season until we achieve that goal, which could mean never, or it could be like, wow, I'm in, let's do this. And somebody, people introduce us, and then we go to the next one and we level up or whatever. So yeah, I think that's fun.
Can I do another category that I don't think ever really had traction, but was a legitimate idea that I thought of that I thought could maybe work?
Okay.
It's a bad idea. It's one of those things where in brainstorming, you say before you say it, this is not the idea.
And I will say this though, Paul, you are the ultimate brainstormer, and you always say, what do you say when we're brainstorming?
There's no judging in brainstorming.
Exactly. Because my default is to be like, tactically, can we do this? They're like, well, can we do this?
You can't
But I
start there.
can't.
When you're
I can't
brainstorming,
start
you
there.
have to start with.
I
Yeah,
can't
you
start
can't
there.
start there. When you're brainstorming, you have to start with, what could we do? So our first guest was our buddy John, amazing guy, very funny, good dude, great dad, great husband. And knowing that he was coming on, I thought, well, maybe we could just make a run of this where every guest was the name John. And our only requirement was that they had to do the podcast from the bathroom. They didn't have to be actually physically going to the bathroom. In fact, we preferred that they don't. But we would call it John from the John. And so the idea being like that you just hear the echo and you're like, why do you need me in the bathroom? It's like, because that's the name of the segment.
John from the John.
Got to go with it. We thought that was a little restrictive and that that idea might stink. Might be a crappy idea. There it is.
That was great. And I would say too that, that sounds like its own like mini podcast, like a 3-minute podcast that you're just talking to people named John.
Or if you have your phone, it could be an hour.
Sure.
That was a joke about the length of time men spend in the bathroom when they have their phone versus when they don't.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's when you get the reels. So I think
it does get reeled. Oh, when you get the reels. Okay, my bad.
So another thing in I think playing off that, because John from the John was actually an idea for a title as well of the podcast. Yeah. And so I think another running, it's not a segment, but it's just kind of a joke, is alternative names for the podcast, because this podcast is technically named after a venture we started a year ago. And the venture was Mr. Puntastic Apparel, which we started doing reels, short form videos on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube that were just punny jokes and a little bit crafted after a very popular format, Doc Talk. And we are fans of Doc Talk. We like those guys. We think that's really funny. And people...
Though for legal reasons, we're not allowed to say that. It was a completely original idea. It had nothing to do with any show out there.
Inspired by, not the same, but inspired by, it's a creative. Yeah. But anyway, so, and off of that, we also built a website, mrpuntastic.com. And really the idea for Mr. Puntastic was that we are dads of a certain age that love to tell dad jokes and get our kids to groan at us. Though I really think like your kids laugh at my jokes better than my kids laugh at my jokes. And
yeah,
I don't know if that's the same for you, but it's like the further away they are from being related to me, the better they react to my really dumb jokes.
Yeah, well, I have so many children that I can kind of have different demographics in my own household. And I have one kid who really appreciates it and will laugh, and the rest will roll their eyes and groan. And like the groans plus the one over the top laughter, that's my built-in audience forever. It's awesome.
And not only it eggs you on, like you want to keep going. Oh, yeah. With either reaction, you're like, oh, let's keep going. So anyway, another running joke would be alternative names for the podcast. So one we thought was really great, or one that we threw around, was Fool's Gold. So like, this is gold, but like for fools. So I think that's funny. I think we could come up with a lot of names, and that might be a running joke as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, the next one we had was Pun and Done. And this is how we've been ending the show. And can you play the drop that you created for Pun and Done?
Okay, well, there is a moment in our second episode where Paul has heard it for the first time. So you may want to come back for the second episode to get the reactions, because the first time we recorded episode 1, I did not have these little stingers. I have 2 stingers for 2 different segments, but here is Pun and Done. Okay, we get the point.
Amazing.
You get it.
Quite frankly, like, it's too cool for what we do. It just really is. I enjoy it way too much. But the idea is that we're going to ask every guest in advance to bring 5 puns, 5 of their best dad jokes or puns to the podcast, and then we'll take turns rapid fire. Our last guest, Joseph, created his own,
Yeah.
and more effort than I think anyone needs to put into
He
these.
put in a ton of effort.
Certainly more than we put into them. But
For sure.
so listen to episode 3, and you'll find out if it was worth it.
Yeah, for sure. And so we'll save that for then. We won't even do them now. Like it is a fun little thing, and it could be, again, like if that was the whole episode or if that was a whole mini pod, that would be fun. We'd probably clip those out for socials and stuff. So you can follow us on Instagram and the places. I am Mr. Puntastic is the Instagram handle.
Yeah.
The last one that we'll talk about today, though I'm sure we'll add things, we'll change things, we'll delete stuff. We'd love to get your feedback on it as well. If you want to hit us up on any of the socials, or even if you listen on Spotify, you can comment on episodes and we can see those comments and reply to those, or get back to you on things. So if you want to submit your own puns or dad jokes, we'd love to read those on air, as they say, though it'll be recorded, and get everyone's reactions to that. But the last one is things my wife taught me. So I don't know if you've seen this, but there are some social media accounts that are really funny, that are like things, inspirational texts from my kids or things like that. And they're just, I just find those really funny. But these are things, and it's a lighthearted segment, but it's about things that we didn't know before we were married, or things that we continually learn from our wives. Most of it makes us better men. And then there are some funny things as well. So we'll be going through some of those things. I have a stinger for that. Should I reveal that now, or should I just wait till episode 2?
Let's just wait till episode 2.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's leave them wanting more.
Yeah. You're so smart, Paul.
I think so too.
That's great. Yeah. So that'll be a fun episode, not episode, but segment that we talk about with the guests who are married and have a wife. Our first guest did have that. He is married, and then our second guest
still does. Yeah,
he still does. And then our second guest is not married, so we didn't go over that with him. So we'll kind of make that work. One more segment that we went into in episode 2, but we didn't talk about when we first recorded this episode, is bigger or better. And that is a fun segment. Do you want to kind of talk about that for a second?
Yeah. To me, this is like, we've all, well, I think most of us at some point in our life have made a big bet, sort of stepped out and tried something new that, even if it didn't, work totally, maybe it did, whether it was successful or a failure, was sort of a turning point to change the course of their life. And so that's those unique moments. I think we look back and we see things in black and white, success or failure, and it's really it's not that. Life is not a linear path. It is a series of sort of paths you go down that lead to the next, and lead to something else. So bigger or better is about that big bet that you made, that maybe you cashed in on, maybe you didn't, but it got you here.
Awesome. So any last minute words you want to encourage our potential audience here on why they should continue coming back to listen to future episodes of the Mr. Puntastic Pod?
I wish I could. I can't think of any reasons why you should listen to this. But we're gonna have fun, and I hope you will too.
Wow,
we should.
Wow.
I mean, that's not a great.
No, that's
not
terrible.
A great
actually.
plug.
That was terrible. But that's okay. It's very real and honest, and in the moment here, because that was not. You didn't plan that out, but I will.
We've done 4 of these now. This being the 4th, but it's a redo of the first.
Yeah,
so we've done 4. 3 will see the light of day, and I'm having fun. It's a blast. I get to hang out with my buddy. We get to laugh and chuckle and discover things. We get to be creative. It's good times. So come along for the ride.
Yeah. So like we mentioned, if you have suggestions we're wide open to hearing from you. If you have funny jokes or you've got puns. Now, if they're totally inappropriate, we're not going to actually engage with them because we do want this to be family friendly. And then if you have a guest that you think we should talk to, particularly if they're a dad and they're doing something interesting, both of us are professionals in what we do, and so we like to talk about business, entrepreneurship, faith, family, pop culture, all the things. And so it's going to be a collection of all that stuff wrapped up into the bow of friendship and being and cracking jokes. So I think our demographic is men our age.
Can I leave you with something, Micah? Because this just sparked a thought in me, and I don't know if it's necessary, so we can cut it out. It's at the end of the pod here. But as I was just talking, I said something about come and take a ride with us, and so because I'm 43, that immediately made me think of the song by Nelly from the late 90s called "Ride with Me."
Mm-hmm.
It's actually "Ride with Me," WIT. If you want to go and take a ride with me, and then I started singing it in my head. Yeah, that song. I started singing in my head, and then I realized I couldn't remember what the lyrics were. Yeah. And so I thought, I think this is hilarious. Lyrics that we thought we knew, but we didn't. So I'm going to read the lyrics to "Ride with Me," just the chorus from Nelly. And you tell me, I'll start the line. You tell me what the next line is. Okay.
I'm not going to know it, but yes.
I know. So if you want to go and take a ride with me.
I don't know. I mean, I know I know how it goes, but I don't know
the rhythm and the melody. Right?
Yeah.
So this is what it actually says, according to the internet. They could be wrong, but we three-wheeling in the foe with the gold D's. Oh, why do I live this way? Hey, must be the money. I have no idea. I'm 43. I've lived a life. I have no idea what three-wheeling in the foe with the gold D's means. I feel really lame saying it out loud. But I have no idea.
I mean,
and then the next line.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Any guess? You want to hazard a guess?
No, I have no clue. And that's a problem with me and like songs. Even if I like them, a lot of times I don't know the lyrics. I'll just like sing along in a mumble. So tell me, what's the next line?
So if you want to go and get high with me, which will neither endorse nor condemn. If you want to go and get high with me, smoke a L in the back of the Benz E. And the Benz E would be a Mercedes Benz.
Right.
So
E-Series.
Expensive car.
Or what?
Smoke an L. I don't know what an L is. I know what a J is, but I don't know why must I feel this way? Hey, must be the money. So three-wheeling, whether riding a tricycle or one of those ATVs, like that sounds fun. I don't know what the foe with the gold D's is, but it's like gold. So it's got to be like nice. So why do I live this way? Must be the money. I don't know if he's saying, and why do I feel this way? Must be the money. Must be like, either he's living a great life because he's wealthy and all that, or he's living a sad life because he's got so much money and mo money, mo problems, to quote another hip hop legend, rest in peace, Biggie. But so I don't know. That's the thing. I just thought we would take that jaunt down the path of
that was kind of a side quest, but I like it.
Side quest.
I like it because there are so many songs that are misheard, misunderstood lyrics, but that makes me think of another thing. See, this is the problem. Your thoughts make me have thoughts, to quote a great former boss. So I think that it's really interesting what you just said. Now I've forgotten my whole train of thought. No, I'm going to come back to it.
Lyrics.
Any moment. Yes, lyrics. I can do this, and you can do this. If you have been a pastor or anybody in ministry, you have the brain to do this. And here's the brain. You can take anything from pop culture and you can spiritualize it.
This is my least favorite activity that Christians do.
So, okay, we won't make it a segment because I don't want to annoy you with our podcast. But, and there it is. And so sorry, I got distracted. The idea that you could watch any movie, listen to any song, or read anything and be like, I can draw a spiritual principle, or I can make that something.
Okay, that's not my least favorite thing. What my least favorite thing is, I got a great example of this. So there's a newer song that came out. It's by a beloved artist named Shabuzi. Not sure if you're familiar with the work of Mr. Shabuzi. But it's everybody at the bar getting tipsy. It's the tipsy song, right? And there are these dudes on the internet, I'm sure well-meaning, and they like Jesus and all of that good stuff, but they turned it into like a song about praising the Lord. And look, I'm not going to tell anybody how to live. You do you, boo-boo. But really, like it feels just like we're pandering here to a demographic, and I'm like, we're better than that. We don't need to do that. Like, Jesus is pretty great. We don't need that. So anyway, just my thoughts, my takes. You can search the internet for the bar song. I think is the Shabuzi version.
Dude,
it's called, and then
that's so funny. It reminds me of
Christian parody of it.
Yeah, it reminds me. It's kind of like we're trying to take a song and then Weird Al Yankovic it, but in a direction that is meaningful.
Yeah, like instead of making it more entertaining and funny like Weird Al would, we decided to make it lamer and and more Christian.
I just had this thought.
Is that our guest quest?
I just had this thought, and here's why I had this thought. Okay, this could be a guest quest. I'm not committing to it at the moment, but this is that is an option, and here's why. Because he's just out of reach. Why is he just out of reach? Well, I did a mission trip to a church in Hollywood that he attends, and still know some people around there. That's number one. Number two, when he was in college, he went to a little university in San Luis Obispo called Cal Poly SLO. And he attended my grandparents' church, and he would have dinner at their house like once a month.
Oh, wow.
Now, my grandparents are no longer with us here. So I can't really use that channel to contact him, but there could be another way, and bringing them up could be a way to connect with him. So anyway, I just had that thought. That's
so your thought is to exploit the memory of your dead grandparents to get Weird Al to do our pod.
Well, I think he would have.
I got to tell you, Micah, I am disgusted by it, but I'm also wildly in favor of it. Let's do it. I'm in.
Okay, so that was thought one. Thought two was what you're saying about this song. We've seen it before in Christian culture. We've seen it before. It happens all the time. How about famously the song, I like big butts and I can't, that song. I remember when someone did a Christian version and it was, I like big Bibles. Do you remember that? Have you heard that?
I don't. That's the dumbest thing.
This is the problem.
I like big Bibles and I cannot lie. First of all, you can, because you don't like big Bibles that much. Nobody
likes to carry around too big of a Bible. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I'm just saying, I agree with you. Yeah. Like that's an unnecessary, they're trying to redeem something there by doing that. And they don't really need to go there.
I think even saying we're trying to redeem it is a little.
I said we, they.
I know, but I think saying they're trying to redeem it is giving it more
generous.
Is being more generous than we should, because it's just a cash grab. It's just like, hey, there's a popular song. I'm going to get all the Christians to buy it by turning some of the babies into Jesuses, and we'll make some money. So I like big Bibles. Like it's not even good. Like, what are we doing here?
Okay. Yeah. Well, we've seen this, and we've seen it. So,
and Sir Mix-a-Lot was a knight, right? Like he was knighted. He was Sir Mix-a-Lot. This is nobility. You can't. can't take it from a guy like that. So anyway, just my thoughts.
Yeah. Well, your thoughts will often make me have thoughts, but that's enough of our side quests today. And that's enough of our
Side
pod.
quest over.
That's enough of our of the pod. I think this has been a successful re-recording of episode 1. Hopefully
better than the first, I'd say.
Nearly at least at the same. I really enjoyed the first one. We just had it.
I did too. Be nice to our listeners.
But come back next time and listen to John Richardson, our guest. I think it's a worthwhile investment of your time. And our goal here is to release weekly. So if this is out, the next one will come out a week from when this is released. Yeah. And it'll be on all platforms that you normally listen to your podcast, just like anybody else would do. So I hope that you enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back. Yeah, that's the pod.
And now play us out Shabuzi's The Bar Song.
And
probably can't afford that. All right.
Not doing that. See it.